what I saw in Nicaragua was revolutionary feminism. I saw how Nicaragua prioritizes women to be involved in every sector in society. For them to own land, to get educated, to have a family and still get educated, to have access, to everything that Nicaragua offers. And here in the imperial core, you have liberal feminism. You have liberal politicians or women liberal politicians that bow down to capitalism, that bow down to the patriarchal system.
Mira que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
Iranian nuclear weapons development.
They have turned the island into a communist hellhole.
The experiment in Venezuela has failed completely.
What I want to do is I want to play a clip of a woman activist. This is a compañera that I interviewed in July. She was a organizer for a union in Nicaragua. She's a really dope woman, and she talks about her message for the U.S. And she's a working class woman, somebody who's organizing with other workers, and she's going to tell us about what she thinks about the U.S. And I want to ask y'all about proletarian campesina feminism in Nicaragua versus bourgeois liberal feminism in the U.S.
Te digo una cosa, ¿por qué queremos a esta revolución? ¿Por qué queremos a Daniel? Daniel de Cipote ha sido revolucionario. Ha sido un hombre que ha volcado su vida a esta revolución. No es un hombre cualquiera. ¿Verdad? Él no es un hombre cualquiera. Él es el líder del Frente Sandinista ahora. ¿Verdad? Él es el que de chiquito, de pequeño, ha estado en esta lucha. Es el único sobreviviente de los fundadores que ha quedado y ha sido lo mejor que ha dado Nicaragua como ser humano. Él es el que vela por la gente pobre. Tanto es así que la gente pobre se vuelca por él. La gente a veces llora cuando pasa a Daniel. Es lo que hizo hoy aquí, de salirse de su carro y saludar a su pueblo. Es indescriptible. La gente por eso lo quiere, porque él es cerca del pueblo, siempre, nunca los abandonó. ¿Verdad? Y él ha dado por Nicaragua, por este pueblo, por la gente pobre, lo que ningún gobierno en esta Nicaragua ha dado. Aquí tenemos ahora un gran desarrollo, tenemos hospitales gratis para la población, educación gratis para la población, carreteras nuevas para la población, energía eléctrica del 98% para toda la población. Entonces, ¿qué podés más pedir? Aquí ni un yanqui de la gran Fordón puede venir y votar a Daniel, muy difícil. Déjame decirte, la gente lo ama. Por eso, porque él se involucra con la gente pobre. Con la gente pobre. Eso te dice todo.
¿Qué mensaje tenés para el gobierno de los Estados Unidos que está sancionando a Nicaragua?
No, es que no hay ningún mensaje para ellos. Cualquier mensaje que vos querrás enviarle, le entró por aquí le salió. Lo que les interesa es sus intereses políticos, sus intereses económicos sobre todo. Derrocar a cualquiera que no está en tus intereses. O sea, ¿qué mensaje se le puede dar a esa gente que se la dan de culta? No, culta para sus intereses nada más. No interesa para el pueblo. Le doy un mensaje para el pueblo de los Estados Unidos, que es diferente. Que vean cómo gastan su dinero, sus impuestos, para solo hacer guerra, nada más. Ese es el mensaje que yo doy.
So this compañera spitting straight facts, talking about how she has nothing to say to the U.S. government. Whatever they say, it goes in one ear and out the other. She's like, what can I say to people like this, right? And she's 100% spot on, pointing out, of course, that there are oppressed and revolutionary peoples within the belly of the Visa Empire, including ourselves, right, who are part of the struggle of anti-imperialism and internationalism. And she's somebody who is active, feminist, proletarian campesina feminist activist in Nicaragua. Contrary to what we see in mainstream propaganda, they say that Nicaragua is against women, that it's horrible, it's oppressive. And of course, there's contradictions that need to be resolved there's still many issues that women are fighting for and winning within the Sandinista Revolution, but it's something that there are many women who defend Daniel, there are many women who defend the revolutionary government. So I wanted to ask compañera Amanda about your thoughts on the role of women in the Sandinista Revolution, what you saw, and tell us a little bit about like your thoughts overall on the difference between campesina proletarian feminism, like what you saw in Nicaragua, versus bourgeois liberal academia feminism.
Right. So what I saw in Nicaragua was revolutionary feminism. You know, I saw how Nicaragua prioritizes women to be involved in every sector in society. You know, for them to own land, to get educated, to have a family and still get educated, to have access, you know, to everything that Nicaragua offers. And here in the imperial core, you have you know, liberal feminism. You have you know, liberal politicians or women liberal politicians that bow down to capitalism, that bow down to the patriarchal system. So, you know, the women in Nicaragua, they're not fighting against the FSLN party led by Daniel Ortega, or they're not fighting against the Sandinista Revolution. They're fighting against and they're fighting against or they're fighting for the liberation, you know, for the liberation and uh, they're fighting against capitalism. They're fighting against the imperial core, the empire. So you could see that women in Nicaragua are way more developed, and they can be in that society and have, you know, those advancements and have those achievements in Nicaragua.
For sure. And one thing that I noticed when I was in Nicaragua is the level of gender parity. And Nicaragua is among, Ophelia was telling me the other day that Nicaragua is among the top 10 countries of gender parity in the world. So a lot of people tout, like, they're always like, oh my God, the Nordic countries, the Nordic social democracies. And it's like Nicaragua, as a revolutionary socialist global South nation, has gender parity on the same top 10 levels of gender parity. And in Nicaragua, one thing we learned when we went to this event, where this former guerrilla fighter was telling us about the political system in Nicaragua, is that they have a system called trenza, which in English means braid. So you know how in a braid, when you're like braiding your hair, there's like one part that goes down and then one part another. And so that's how they structure a lot of the political positions in any political institution. It'll be woman, man, woman, man, woman, man. And not just out of some corny, like, representative politics like we've seen in the US, like, oh, a seat at the table. It's like they actually mean it, and they want that, they encourage it, you know. So it's something that I noticed right away. And the levels of femicide, again, another statistic that's important to mention, Nicaragua has one of the lowest femicide rates in the Western Hemisphere overall, and neighboring Honduras has the highest rate of femicide in the Americas, which is night and day. And we're talking about an area that's the geographic size of North Carolina and South Carolina. It's like, imagine if North Carolina was the murder capital of the world, the highest femicide rate, and South Carolina had almost no femicides and one of the lowest crime rates. So it just goes to show you how drastic things can change when you have socialism versus capitalism. Comrade Julie, your thoughts on the role of women in the Sandinista Revolution and proletarian feminism in Nicaragua?
I wanted to comment on the, I'll get back to it, but like basically I noticed how Clementina, the woman who cooks the meals for us at the school, she was happy to do that. Like, it wasn't like a fight, like, oh, I have to cook because I'm a woman. Like, that wasn't even like that. Like, that was her revolutionary role. And that's something that people like can't accept when they're growing up inside of a system where the whole idea about equality is kind of rooted in this like representation, like, you know, you just need a woman on the ticket versus, or you need to be the first CEO or something like that, versus what what do you need to do to make sure that revolution happens? And in one person's case, that'll mean that they have to be the one who cooks for everybody. And that's great. She was very happy to do that. And I just thought it was interesting also, like what that woman was saying in the video about, like, you know, you can't, what is the point of even trying to send a message to people in the global north about what, you know, like, it's like you over here, like, or we, if, you know, if you're talking about people in Nicaragua, we fight for our own stuff. Like, we defend our stuff here. We don't need to tell you over there what, we don't need to like beg for anything. We don't need to like convince you of anything, and that's something that I think that people who, like, I don't really deal with too many people who are like social imperialists, but like that's like generally the sense that I get from them, is that the general kind of discourse is like, you know, you could just like have a conversation with the so-and-so person or that so-and-so group, and then it'll, you know, maybe then they'll understand. But I don't think that it's just like, if you're clear on what you want and who the enemy is, you wouldn't even have a conversation with them. So I thought that was very interesting that the person said that. And I don't know, when I think about, like, there's like so much in the way of revolution, not to be pessimistic, but there's so much in the way of revolution in the United States. The first being that you're not even connected to nature. Like, you're not connected to other humans. So you have to first create a society or create scenarios within your little society where people are actually able to connect. Like, you have to recreate all of that. And that's so much work. And that's revolutionary work, but it is so much work for people to be reconnected with their humanity before you can even seriously talk about building revolutionary organizations. And it can happen while you can build revolutionary organizations while you're also rebuilding new humans. It's just a lot more work for us here in the United States versus for them in the global south, where there's already the humanities baseline. It's already there. It's good stuff. It's like a good quality product kind of, you know, versus like over here, we're like having to like just like deal with a lot of issues to like just to kind of like do basic stuff.